Jesus is scandalous. Jesus is scandalous. His grace is scandalous. The word scandalous means causing general public outrage by a perceived offense against morality or law. Jesus was scandalous. He caused outrage unto death. For what? Loving every person he'd ever met. Healing thousands of people. Feeding thousands of people. Being there for widows and orphans. He was looked at as outrageous for loving. He was looked at as offensive. He is not just a fictional being. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, let's put that aside for a couple minutes. I'll get into that in a second. Jesus' life is in a historic event that warped all time, all history. It was a day that has been talked about since that day happened. It is one of the most recorded instances that we know of. Jesus is the most famous person to ever walk this earth. And it's not because of his money. It's not because of anything other than he loved. He wasn't a king. He came in a manger, a dirty, filthy manger. And all he did was love, yet he chose scandalous grace. The word grace, really quickly, the word grace means getting what you don't deserve. Grace means getting what you don't deserve. Jesus got the opposite of grace. He got what we deserved. He chose what we deserved. It's preposterous. It's like if I had just murdered someone and someone else somehow took my place on death row. That's what Jesus did for all of humanity. And what makes no sense about this historical event is they had no reason, from what we know, we could do the what if game and proclaim that he messed up. But from the evidence that we know, Jesus did not wrong anyone. He was just scandalous. And we see this throughout time. Some of the greatest philosophers are murdered for their ideologies, are stripped from freedom of the world for their ideologies. But Jesus was stripped of everything, including his clothes, including his own skin as he was hanging on a wooden cross that dug into his back. Like I said, you don't have to believe the Bible, but to proclaim that Jesus didn't exist is very far-fetched. And it's something that is not really doable. You know, I didn't grow up Christian. I didn't grow up learning about him. But when I started looking to the historicity of Jesus, it was indisputable. I couldn't deny the fact that he lived. And then I started reading this book called the Bible. And I saw what he said in this book. And one thing that I have never been able to shake out of my mind is some of Jesus' last words. This was after he was beaten. This was after he was mocked. This is after he was betrayed by his own friends. He says this, as his back is ripped to shreds, you can probably see his bones, as he has nails in his wrists, as he has nails in his feet, as he has blood falling down his face. This is what he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. If I was in his situation, that's not what I would state. Those would not be some of my last words. I would shout to the rooftops that I was innocent, that I had not done what was deserving of this death. Yet for some odd reason, this is what we find to be true for Jesus to say some of his last words were. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. This is scandalous. This is outlandish. This is outrageous. A man who has done nothing is pleading with the God of the universe, saying, understand this. I love them. I want to be here because I can't bear being separated from them for eternity. Jesus, why it's so scandalous is because Jesus didn't just die and give his life. He gave his life. He gave heaven to us. He gave eternity to us. He gave his love to us, his grace and his mercy, and so much more. And he looked at us. He didn't just give his life, he gave everything and more. It makes no sense. And I was thinking about it last night, and why it's so weighty on my heart is last night someone asked me, I paid for something, and someone said, you can't keep this up. It's not sustainable to pay all the time. And I laughed. Because deep in my heart, I wanted to say, yes, it is. But honestly, it's not. I don't have millions of dollars sitting around. I don't have all of this stuff. But there's something in my heart that shows me, and this is what I said, I can't bring this stuff with me. I can't bring this money. So the day I die, it's just going to sit there. It's going to sit there. And so for me not to give everything to show the love of Jesus to those around me would be a folly way for me to live this life when I've seen the scandalous grace that has changed my entire being. See, this grace, this, even the word scandalous, it seems weird with Jesus. It seems very odd to put that word with Jesus, especially if you're a Christian. But once you understand the weight of what he did, it makes you want to live that same way. It makes you want to understand the thoughts and the ideologies of why a man would do this. Let's say he wasn't God. I believe he was God. I believe he is God. But let's say he wasn't. How could a man do this? How could a man heal thousands? How could a man feed thousands? How could a man do all of these things and not make one mistake and still say at the end of his life, forgive them? I don't think it's possible. I've made so many mistakes. And now I'm living my life striving to look like Jesus because I've seen this grace that makes no sense, but somewhere in my heart it makes sense. See, the thing about Jesus that has captivated me as someone who thinks and thinks and thinks and asks why and has pondered the idea, the intricacies of the universe of almost every ideology, it feels like. He has touched my heart with love. My heart was once a well that was so deep, it felt like it could never be filled. And I sit today with a full heart of the love of a man who died, who is historically proven by numerous accounts, not just the Bible, but even atheist scholars like Josephus and Tiberius. This man, Jesus, why it has captivated my gaze for the last 5 years is because it's not just the Bible. It is history that has proven Jesus to be true. It is time that has proven Jesus to be true. He's the most famous person to ever walk this earth. Rightfully so, because all he did was love. All he did was put others first. All he did was hold those who were hurting and healed the ones that were cast to the side. This is the Jesus that really lived and really died. And I say that because whether you believe in the Bible or not, you cannot deny the indisputable fact that Jesus really died for no reason. Except when you read the Bible, you realize the reason is so that we could live with him forever. It says in Romans 5:8 that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still sinners, the perfect man, the lamb, the innocent one, was slain, was brought to slaughter for us. That is scandalous. That is outrageous. It doesn't make sense to the mind. But once you receive it in your heart, it fills the entirety of who you are. And you realize it's what you were made for. What Jesus did will never make sense logically to the mind because it surpasses all understanding. You can try to figure out this world. I tried for 18 years of my life. I tried to understand why we were here. I tried to understand the science. I tried to understand everything. I looked into numerous religions. And when Jesus encountered me, and once I started really looking into him, I realized that he did something that was so different than anything else that has ever been done. He severed time forever. He changed the course of man's eternity by allowing us to accept him into our hearts, allowing us to allow him to come and meet us. What blows my mind is Jesus willingly chose this. He could have easily justified himself. But for some reason, this man didn't. And I believe the Bible shows us it's because he really was God. And he really is God. And he really wants a relationship with us. That's what grace does. It gives us what we don't deserve. When we've chosen our own ways, when we've chosen to walk in the ways of wickedness and sin, the things that cause us literal death. Have you ever thought about that? Our sin, the majority of sin causes us physical or spiritual death. At least both. But majority of sin does cause us physical death. Isn't that intriguing? That God was trying to tell us something, that he didn't want us to die. He didn't want us to live a life of death, but a life of eternity with him. That's what he gave us at the start. He didn't have to go back. He didn't have to come down from eternity and the paradise. He didn't have to. He came down from the most perfect, beautiful, magnificent place in the entirety of the universe so that we could enter those same gates that he came down from. That's the biggest gift of grace I've ever heard. I've done a lot of things in my life. For a long time, I regretted a lot of things. And God has shown me that he doesn't keep record of my wrongs. And that is the biggest gift. That is the best gift I've ever been given. I've never felt the love. I've never felt love like I do with Jesus. He wants to show humanity love. He wants to show humanity the truth of love. He wants to show you his forgiveness. The man who can do it. I don't know what you've done in your life, but I know a man that forgives all things. And he looks at you in the eyes, and he holds you, and he says, I love you. I forgive you. This is scandalous grace. This is the scandalous man of Jesus. It's outrageous to the Pharisees, outrageous to the Sadducees, outrageous to the Gentiles, outrageous to his own disciples. They denied him. They betrayed him. It didn't even make sense to them. And he comes back and he still forgives them. Jesus, a perfect man, dying a horrible death, the worst death, in agony, excruciating pain, looked up and said, forgive them, Father. This is the true Jesus. This is the true love that we were made for. And this is scandalous grace. Only from Jesus. This is Jesus.